let's move on to Little Tech. Steve D's got one that he's very passionate about, I think.
Well, I'm not that passionate about it, but here's a stock I do quite like.
Are you passionate about anything?
Not really, but I think that's just because I'm from Yorkshire. I don't think I'm supposed to be passionate about anything. Maybe whippets and flat caps, I suppose.
Greggs.
And
Steel. Greggs, yeah, I am passionate about Greggs. Yeah.
Greggs and mining stocks. There we go.
So look, Spotify, Q3 key metrics. Revenue was up to €3 billion. That was exactly expected. It was growth of 21% year on year. Operating loss margin was negative 8%. Oh, sorry, no, it was 8%. Operating loss margin was 8%. It can't be negative 8% because that would be positive. Generated 40 million in free cash flow. Monthly active users was up 20% year on year to 456 million users. This current version of Spotify as this quarter can be summed up quite easily for me. Great product, bad business. And CEO Eck thought so too. Saying about just as much during the earnings call, but he's out to prove you wrong. But yeah, he's not wrong at the moment. And the bet is one day that it might be, and here's probably why. Spotify is about to break the 200 million premium subscriber barrier during the next quarter, meaning that in just 3.5 years, it's doubled the amount of people that are willing to pay for its product. ARPU across its free and its premium product increased again last quarter. This is at a new record high, $57 annualized. It's pretty high. It's definitely
reverse
tracking
Netflix.
up. Yeah. Whilst we're seeing products like Netflix's user growth start to slow a little bit, it's not happening at Spotify. They're adding around 20 million paying subscribers per year. Spotify's new competitor, TikTok's Resso, has had no noticeable impact on their business. Although TikTok have reported that it has taken some market share, Spotify said, not from us. Lastly, looks like they're in the frog boiling business too. They're going to do a price rise in America soon. Watch this space. So on the back of that, little snippets, the stock went down about 12%. I had 8% written down, but I think it's nearly 12% now. And why is this? Well, gross margin on the free tier has absolutely collapsed. It's dropped from being just under 11% to being about 1.8%. This is gross margin as well, so this is just reflecting the tougher ad market that we've just covered ad nauseum with all the other stocks. Yeah. This is a temporary issue. They should come back. FX has also hurt Spotify as well, taking about 85 million euros off the bottom line. And lastly, just to sort of compound it, they guided pretty weak as well. They think these gross margin problems are going to continue for at least the next quarter. It's going to continue to add downward pressure on their net income. To be clear, in this environment and with Spotify's already tight margins, we shouldn't expect them to be profitable when macro environment turns like this. So I'm not shocked about anything I saw in this quarter or guide. I didn't even think it was a particularly disappointing report. I'm not in the market for any more Spotify at the moment, but I think it might be a decent entry point for somebody who fancies taking the good side of the bet.
Yeah, this environment is classic. Got to be profitable, right? Got to be profitable if you're going into... Because if you're not, there's two things, ain't there? You either got a ridiculous amount of debt, or you're not, or if you're not profitable. They're the two things that can lead you to becoming insolvent, bankrupt, blah blah blah. I'm not saying Spotify isn't any risk of that, but I think the stronger stocks through a recessionary environment are going to be the ones that have free cash flow and have, or at least they're the targets of the investors, basically. The other thing is, great product, not a bad business. It's not Twitter, is it? It's not this unmonetizable thing that's out there. Twitter seems to be terribly unmonetizable, but Spotify could be. It really could be, and it's the only thing is this network effect that it has could be under threat. I've always thought that it's a very replicable model, but no one's ever been able to pull it off. Are you 12% underwhelmed by this report?
I don't think so. No, I think this was pretty much exactly what you would expect from Spotify. It's good growth on the monthly active users, good growth on the premium subscribers. The ad-supported tier has collapsed, like every ad-supported tier you would expect has collapsed across the market. The spend isn't there for, especially outside of the sort of like Google products, the sort of very first products that a marketing department go to. I think that, you would have fully expected what's happened to Spotify to happen. But Steve, is this any shock to you at all?
I don't know about a shock. I thought there was more to be positive. I don't think this is 12% worth of shock to me, for what it's worth. I mean, I think you mentioned in that list of stats kind of higher ARPUs and higher premium subscribers, right?
Yep.
As I see these kind of businesses, they more or less come down to two things, which is basically how many users can you get and how much revenue can you make per each one of them. And as long as those two numbers keep going in the right direction, I sort of feel fairly positive. I'm not going to keep going on about how I feel about Spotify's free thing. It doesn't surprise me that people are kind of leaving that thing, or revenue's going down on that with ad spend and so on. If I was an advertiser, and I'm not, it would be, you've seen my attempts at making adverts, then don't pay any attention to me if you're in a marketing division. But if I was an advertiser, Spotify would be low down my list of places to advertise, because I think most of the time people just get angry at the damn thing. So not massive surprise to me that's kind of collapsing a little bit. The difference between Spotify and Twitter, for me, for what it's worth, and this just speaks even worse to Twitter, is that Spotify doesn't own most of its content, from what I can tell. They have to basically get it in from the people who do. Twitter, at least, doesn't pay the people that write all the tweets. At least I'm not aware it pays people to write tweets or anything like that. Yet, indeed. But it feels to me like Twitter ought to be easier to make money on, because at least you don't have to buy it all in.
That's the thing with Twitter, though. There's an actual proven model on how to make money from social media, and they've still not managed it. And Spotify, I think their ad tier is basically... I think the dream is that they will absorb radio advertising as that slowly dwindles away. But I think their issue with that is that radio spend on advertising isn't dropping in the sort of dramatic way that I think they expected it to do so. So, maybe when things get more targeted, when Spotify obviously is going to have a lot more data than a local radio station, the idea that they could target somebody with a local company to a local user, when they can offer that kind of sort of granularity to their advertising, perhaps they'll do a little bit better out of this. But in the meantime, when ad spends are down, I mean, I wouldn't even focus on the free tier. If I was Spotify, I would just keep working on the premium tier. One of the things that people really want is this hi-fi version, this high-fidelity audio version. It was asked again in the quarter. This is I think it's the fourth straight quarter that I've heard somebody ask Daniel Ek when it's coming, and he conveniently talked about something that was absolutely nothing to do with it. So I don't think it's coming anytime soon.
It's not coming anytime soon. Spotify
Platinum, high-fidelity audio, charge them 50% more. Why can't you do this?
Oh, absolutely. And I also disagree. With the advertising thing, I think Spotify is one of the top places that you should be putting advertising right now, because you've got a captive audience right there, right in your ears. But one question I was going to ask you two is, because I genuinely don't know what the answer is and don't know where it would lean, but if you guys got in your car to go and do your commute to work, I imagine you walk to work, Steve W, but let's just say, oh no, you don't. Oh, that's good.
Oh, I cycle.
Oh, right. Okay. So I know what your answer is going to be. But would you listen to the radio, or are you putting on Spotify? Is it going straight in? Because I know the answer from some people, but I don't know what it is for you guys.
The answer for me, when I'm going anywhere in the car, or even very occasionally on the bike, I tend to have my ears kind of tuned to the surroundings in the bike a little bit. But it's definitely more often a podcast for me.
Yeah, I have Spotify podcasts on the way in, unless there's some kind of political turmoil and I feel like being a little bitch about it, I'll listen to LBC.
You know what? I that's very interesting, because I know that people that use certain cars that I use, the radio is always getting tuned to different stations, which means they are not plugging in their phone and they are not using podcasts. If I go on a long journey, it's podcast, but I think that's just the kind of people that we are, right? We are constantly on here, and I'm on the videos, and I'm constantly trying to learn from other people. So I can understand why we're on the podcast there. And I can get my podcast from anywhere else, right? But I'm not listening to Spotify music. And very interesting that you listen to LBC, because if I'm going on short journeys, that is the channel that I will flick to, because I'm fed up of listening to music in the car. Now, I wonder if that's a trend and that we're moving towards podcasts, and if that is somewhere where Spotify need to be thinking about monetizing, because I don't think they monetize podcasts in the same way, other than just paying for Joe Rogan 100 million to be on there. Very interesting one, and it actually explains a lot about podcast advertising, because podcast advertising is actually kind of annoying. I know we've just started doing bits of it as well, but unless it's the right sort of advert, yeah, I know. Unless it's the right sort of advert that's going towards your audience, because sometimes I'll be listening to podcasts and I'll get like an advert for like manscaping or something like that, some sort of like shaving my balls off or something like that, and
that's not what
it
you
just
do.
doesn't. I think it is, because some of these manscaping advertisements is not for you. They don't talk about your beard. They go, "Oh, do you want to use the same blade as your face for your balls?" And you'd be surprised.
Oh no!
Why doesn't Paul write the ads for our show?
Where I'm going with this?
I forgot my joke. in the How's Your Week bin, I was going to say that I had, like a RuPaul contestant, I had sparkled up my backside.
That's all right. That's next week.
That's a good joke. Anyway, where I was going with it is I do like podcast advertising when it's targeted properly, and I think a lot of the podcasts are making a lot of money out of that advertising. And that's where Spotify is not making money. I think they're doing a test with Joe Rogan though.
I think that absolutely Spotify's next move has to be dynamic advertising through its podcast network. I think the podcasters should be able to create a 15 or 30 second space in their adverts, and Spotify should be able to dynamically fill that with what their customers.
Basically, make it YouTube.
Make a YouTube advert. Yeah, we'll make a slot and you fill it up.
Yeah, and and they'll. Yeah, and basically you'll get your advertisers to bid for the ears of whatever listener is listening to whatever sort of podcast. And then it allows the podcasters to start making some real advertising revenue. And then you see YouTube, why is this not going through the head of Spotify? Have they just not got the technology to get this? Do they need to bring on a YouTube exec and bring it in to make this dynamic advertising? I just don't get it.
I don't think we're the first people to come up with this at Spotify. I think they've got smart people probably working on this as we speak. I would expect it to come pretty sharpish, to be honest.
Come on, get a move on, because you're not making money.
No, you lost me at the bit where you said podcasters making revenue.